Well, thank you for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure. This is whenever I have any free time, I try to do as many of these things as I can, you know.
Absolutely love it.
Good.
I see that you are recording this, so
Yep.
I'm hoping then that we can watch it later. I've got my cell phone, so I could record it with my cell phone if need be, but that's
No, it'll be out and available on YouTube so everybody can see it.
okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
So do you have any burning questions since you were the first one in? Do you have any burning questions on scheduling that we should address? And I'm going to put that out there for everybody to ask any questions that they have. But anything you can think of off the top of your head?
Anything that you have to educate us on, I am all ears. My husband is the dentist here. We had opened up the practice 3 years ago, but he's been a practicing dentist for 20 some years. I have no dental background whatsoever, so this is just kind of new to me. I'm just kind of hit and miss in the office here and there and whenever.
Did you guys change your schedule at all for COVID?
We have not really, just leaving openings in the schedule a little bit for, or making appointments a little bit longer for the cleaning. But otherwise not a whole not a lot.
Okay.
And we've got a new hire who's sitting here with me. Cool. So I figured this would be a very good opportunity for her to learn from the best. So
awesome. Well, I don't know about the best. I'm maybe one of them, but not the best.
You are, yeah. You're way up there.
Well, and really, whenever I do these meetings, I kind of just I can ramble on for hours. I mean, I'm in withdrawal pains because I'm normally every Friday in front of an audience doing this. So I'm used to rambling. So I always like to try to make this about everybody else and let everybody ask questions. So Jess is in here. I don't know if you can hear me, Jess, but if you want to unmute your mic, you can ask questions, or at the bottom of the screen, there is a chat box where you can ask questions by typing them. So it seems you guys.
I do have a question.
Go for it.
It is in regards to intellicare alerts.
Okay.
I've put this on your page. We used to use intellicare alerts, absolutely loved them. Mm-hmm. And then something happened where our computers were slower than turtles.
Yep.
It completely every single computer, it took like 5 minutes to schedule somebody because it just, I don't know what slowed it down that much or what pushed it over the edge, because we had been using those alerts for the longest time. And then something just like that.
Okay. Did you, no changes to your hardware, no changes to anything, no upgrade to Eaglesoft?
Nothing.
Okay.
We talked to the company and they, went through everything and did some updates and cleaned everything up, and we were still having them. And then Eaglesoft said, well, it's your intellicare. We got to take them all off and you can't have them. So I just don't understand why some offices can use them and why we can't now.
Yeah, well, one thing I will tell you is, and there's a huge warning, so I'm going to actually share my screen out so you can see what I'm talking about. And let's go to screen 2. Let's get rid of that. And let's go over here. Actually, no, let's stay at the front desk and go into our schedule. If I go into the schedule setup, and hopefully you guys, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this red warning right here is the only red warning in Eaglesoft. And it says intellicares may impact the performance. Now, that's why anytime you ask about intellicares through support, they're going to tell you, take them out. What I would tell you is take out one at a time and see if that makes any change. All right. It could be that, I'm going to go back over to my front desk. I have, I don't even know how many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 34. So I've got like 50 intellicares in my system. And here, I'm going to reach off camera, but I'm going to show you guys. This is my Eaglesoft server. I literally run my Eaglesoft on this almost like thumb drive. And I do everything to try to push it to see how much I can do on here. So I don't have any issues. Now, granted, I don't have as much data as a lot of offices, but I'm running it on a thumb drive. not a virtual machine. It's just a little older Windows 10 stick computer. I don't have any issues, and I've got a lot of custom things in here. But what I will tell you is whatever you had before, what you might have to do is put them back in,
Yep.
put them in one at a time, and then see what happens. Flip through your days, and then when you find that there's one that's bogging down the mix, take that one out, add some more, see what happens. So it's going to be trial and error, but there are some IntelliCares that really they go through the entire database to find the answers to those, queries, and that does slow your system down.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm looking at mine. We've got 6 IntelliCares in here.
Right. And and remember, some can be on the clinical screen and some can be on the schedule.
Okay.
So you can pick and choose, if it's like the bite wings and full series.
Yep.
The bite wings shouldn't have an issue. The full series, maybe that does, and maybe you only need that in the clinical screen. But that also requires that the clinical department is using the clinical screen to see those things.
Sure. Okay.
So, but that's the big thing. But I use IntelliCares a whole lot, and I'd say 99% of the offices that I personally work with or that I have set up have a ton of IntelliCares. I use them for everything. That's the way I've eliminated my route sheets. That's the way we have all of our patient alerts. I don't like pop-ups, so I use IntelliCares for a lot of different things. You can see them all going down my schedule.
I was just showing Kimberly what they are, because since she's been here, we haven't been using them. But
yeah, well, put your primaries back in, like your bite wings.
Yep.
All right. And then, use that for a little while, a couple hours, see what happens. Then try your full series or pan. Try that for a little while, see what happens. And then, pick and choose, prioritize it, pick and choose which ones you want to be on before you give up. And I'm gonna check something in the group and see. I don't know if I'm looking at my other monitor over here to see if somebody. Nope. Okay. I just wanted to see if anybody said that they couldn't get into the group or something like that. But yep, actually it's just the 3 of us. So, and Jess, hopefully you can hear me. I can't tell, and but I'm assuming you can. Let me check my participants. Yep, nobody's waiting. Okay, so let's just talk about a few things here. In scheduling and scheduling setup, do you guys use templates? Or
we do not,
okay.
But we are talking about doing that.
Okay. So I've got a bunch of different templates in my schedule because, again, I show this for different things. But I have a different template on a Monday than I do on a Tuesday, than I do on a Wednesday, than I do on a Thursday, than I do on a Friday. So each one would have a different template. And if you've ever worked with a consultant, I don't do scheduling the way that most consultants recommend scheduling. I do it almost backwards, but I have a better success rate with scheduling than a lot of people do. So, but you can see here's a Tuesday, and you can see that this first doctor works out of his regular chair on Tuesdays, but every other Tuesday he does surgery. So I have my schedule set up so every other week it flips from restorative to surgery. You can also see on a Wednesday, I have this set up, and I just for the purpose of showing people, I have this set up based on a COVID-19, recommended CDC schedule.
Sure.
And that gives me 20 minutes of downtime in between every hygiene patient. But you can also see, if you look across the schedule, you can see that my doctors are also blocked for that time. So in theory, my doctors are coming out to do an exam here, all right? But that means that they don't have to go back into their operatories, because in essence, they've got to de-gown, go over to hygiene, and not go back. So I actually have my schedule set up so that it represents that downtime. So each day I have a little different setup with my hygiene schedule as opposed to my restorative schedule. All right. And the nice thing is, when I go to double click and schedule in my restorative chair, if you notice this, it comes right up to my D, which stands for doctor. All my appointment types are set up with either a D for the doctor or an H for hygiene. So I don't have to scroll up and down looking for appointment types. So I'm going to grab a patient. All right. And I don't want to do that right now, but I'm going to just look at my list. And you can see that all of my appointment types are listed doctor, hygiene, easily grouped together. All right. And I have very few appointment types. The reason I don't is because, if a patient is scheduled for a crown and a filling next to that crown, what appointment type would you choose? You can't choose filling, you can't choose crown. So what I have my appointment set up with is really, it's just time, low, medium, and high, which is 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and 90 minutes. Or, if you do 90, 120, whatever, 90, 60, 90, 120, whatever is short, medium, and long for appointment times. So I have mine set up that way. And then I have emergencies, endo, surgical, dentures. But when it comes to restorative work, I just schedule it that way. And it makes it so much easier because in one screen, without having to drop down or scroll through things, I can see pretty much everything that my doctors do. All right. And then same thing when it comes to hygiene. I can pretty much see every single hygiene type within one window. All right. But the nice thing is I can just grab an appointment type. It's preset with the time that I expect. There's the hygiene time and then the doctor time preset. I only give my doctors 5 minutes at the end of an appointment for hygiene for the exam. Typically we would give 10 minutes. But visually, I just need to see a line. I know that they're going to be there at the end of the appointment. I don't need to see the full 10 minutes of doctor time there. So I always just do one 5-minute spot for my hygiene visit. And I'll show you how we set those things up. So back to the front desk under list and on schedule, and then appointment types. Here are all my appointment types, and literally that's it. This one's in here because I can't get rid of it. It's just called old recall. I was playing around with it and I can't, I have patients scheduled with that, so I can't get rid of it at the moment. But you can see for the most part, that's all I use. And then I just set up this break time down here for my COVID breaks. But each of these appointment types is set up. So depending on your state, here's my scaling your route planning. And if my doctors have to do the injection at the beginning of the appointment, I actually leave time for the doctor to do the injection. Otherwise, if you work in a state or if all your hygienists do their own injections, you can make that hygiene time.
Right.
But I always leave at least 5 minutes of time for my doctor to do an exam. An injection. And then for my adult recalls, I'm sorry, this is a new patient adult. So I actually give my doctors 15 minutes in a new patient adult visit, as opposed to in a recall, they only get that 5 minutes at the bottom. The other thing I want you guys to see is I actually have a value for this appointment. So if I schedule services, what's going to happen is those services will add up and show me exactly how much that appointment is worth, how much is being scheduled. But if I don't add any procedures, I can still see that this appointment is worth $125. So I create just a baseline so that even if nobody added services, I can still see a value to that appointment, because hopefully you guys can see this at the very top of my screen. I can see that I have $125 scheduled out of my $13,000 goal, even though I didn't even put any procedures in for this appointment, but I can tell what's being scheduled. So same thing for my high, medium, and low restorative stuff. So I'll just add him back over here. So if I grab a high production, all right, it automatically gave me a $2,000 value for that. All right. Oops. I didn't mean to schedule that. All right. but I can now, I can start to chip away at my value to start to see that numbers rise or lower. All right. Let's see what else I can show you. Is today, isn't it? Oh, I haven't logged off. That's why the date's wrong. And we talked about intellicare. And I mean, I can quickly see through my intellicare what's going on with every patient. I'm trying to see if other people are trying to get into the meeting as we're going. So down through my intellicare. So I can tell this person is overdue for their FMX or PAN, overdue for their bite wings. This is a custom intellicare, and it says that they have outstanding referred services. This one lets me know that they have a treatment plan over $1,000. They're on a 3-month recall. All right. They failed appointments in the past, that they have Blue Shield or United Concordia. There is a private memo that I should read about the patient. And of course, this is a pre-medication one that's a standard for everybody. And somebody asked this morning about what happens with patients who are seasonal. So one of the practices, or a lot of the practices I work with, are in beach communities where patients are there half a year. So I actually set this up in my office where we have this little bird, and it's a snowbird, and it lets me know that this patient's on a 12-month recall. So they're only here during the summer or during the winter, whichever one you do. So I can quickly see that person's not somebody I expect to come back in 6 months, but they're on a 12-month recall. And they have MetLife, and of course their imaging symbols, and they're overdue for, they have an outstanding treatment plan. So quick enough that you can do this, but let's just talk about some quick moves to move patients around the schedule. One interesting thing is if somebody called and they said, hey, I can't make it in at 11:30. Can I come in later? You don't have to delete this appointment. You can just pick it up and move it to another appointment slot. All right. And that also works if you have to move the patient from this day to, let's say, next Wednesday. Next Thursday. All right. So I can look ahead, see there's nobody on my next Thursday, go back to today. All right. Pick them up and actually move them onto the calendar next Thursday. Drop them, and they're going to be in next Thursday. All right.
How did you save that time?
So you don't have to save the time. I'm just saying if they're going to move to the same exact time spot on a different day.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Yep. You can just pick them up.
But if they're not, if he was going to come in at 2 o'clock that afternoon, you would have to physically move it then. Okay.
Exactly. And there's a couple different ways. I don't like doing right clicks, only because right clicks to me means I'm using an extra finger, which means I'm going to wind up with carpal tunnel syndrome. So what I'd be doing is just picking them up and dragging them into this appointment queue, and then going to the other day that I want to move them, pick them up and move them. The nice thing about that is because if you just directly move them, sometimes, and we see patients do this all the time, you move them and then they go, oh, no, that's not going to work out. How about this? And you've already moved them. So I'd rather just put them to my queue and then pick them up and move them to where I want them in the end. Got it? So let's move him back to today so we can play with the people who are scheduled today. And a couple things that, actually I'm going to go to March 6th to show you. All right. So on March 6th, here's the way that I view my schedule. And let's go to my view. I'm going to actually change my view to clear, so we don't have to get any noise from the patient's names or any of that kind of information. Let's just look at the colors. Now, here's one of the great things that I love about this. What's that?
How did you clear off all the names?
Okay, so I actually have a schedule view called Clear, where I've actually set this up. So there's absolutely nothing showing here in the display.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right. So, and I've just actually saved this as another view. So up here is views.
Yep.
So I can save as and see I have a clear view. So I have a full view, which is the first one you saw.
Yeah.
All right. I have a single doctor view. So I'm only, if one doctor wants to see just what they're doing. I have a clinical view, which is the same view, but it's first names only. So this is my HIPAA compliant view.
Yep.
And then I have a clear view. And I use this view on my Panorex, like if you have a computer at your Panorex. And I also use this, we have a big 70-inch monitor in a hallway, and we put this view up. So the doctors can walk by here and actually see what they need to do and where they need to do it. So I can look at this view and I can tell there's an emergency coming at 1:10 this afternoon. I can see I have a new patient coming in here and a new patient coming here and a bunch of kids coming in on, in the afternoon there. So I can quickly look at my schedule and tell what's going on. And this is kind of like if you're running through the airport trying to find out where your flight to Hawaii is. All I got to do is look at the screen quickly and go, oh, there's a departure to Hawaii. So we use this view a lot to be able to just, sort of create strategies for what's going to be scheduled and where these patients are going. All right. So that view tells me a lot about what's going on, but I can hit the AP button up here. And now I'm looking at the providers. So before I was looking at the procedures, and now I'm looking at the providers. So I can tell that this is Dr. Gray. This blue color is Dr. Gray. But Dr. Gray only works till 1 o'clock. So why is this patient down here scheduled with Dr. Gray? And why is this person over here going to get an exam for Dr. Gray and that one and that one? So I can quickly look at my schedule and find out that there's going to be issues with the way that we do walkouts. So I need to make sure that I update my providers. Same thing here. This purple provider is Barbara. So that's going to get walked out incorrectly, or I need to find out if that was somebody who said, I only want to see Sally or whatever, So I've got to fix those things before I go to the walkout. All right. So quick look from A, which is appointment types, to P, which is providers, to be able to tell what's happening in your day, to be able to, to quickly find out if you need to fix something. All right. So I leave that AP button on my schedule. There is another button that sits up there which is CP. I never use that. And if you look at my toolbar, I get rid of everything off of the toolbar that I'll never use. So just FYI, if you don't need them, take them off. It's a pain to have stuff on there that you'll never use.
What's the CP for?
CP stands for chair versus provider.
Okay.
So, but the problem with that is, if you use the chair versus provider, there's going to be a issue, because if you look at the at the providers, it's going to show like the doctor in the hygiene room, because the doctor is responsible for that hygiene patient. So it's really confusing. So I take that off. The only time I ever use that are some of the clinics that I work in, where the doctors need to see all the patients who they're going to be responsible for. But other than that, I take it off. I don't have any use for that. So CP, get rid of it if you can. I'm going to go back to views and go back to my full view so we can see our patients, and go back to my procedures. All right. The other thing you might notice is I don't have any of those slashes or X's going down the side of my schedule. Again, it's just noise. I know where my doctors need to come in. And if I look at my AP, I can see right there that really light blue line up there is for the office manager to come in and do a consent. Then the doctor's going to be with the patient, and then the assistant's going to be with the patient, and the doctor's going to be with the patient. So I can quickly see from my provider view what's going to happen. So I don't need it. I don't need the slashes. It's just more noise on the side of the schedule. So the other thing you guys might notice is I have these things like this LH here. I have this slash here. I've got FAM down here. So what that is within every appointment, there is a prefix field. All right. And what I do is I put -- in that field. And what it does is it actually puts these little arrows around it, little brackets, to let me know that this patient has an appointment not just in the doctor's chair, but also in hygiene. So it's basically a line to let me know that the patient's going back and forth between doctor and hygiene. So I have it on that appointment and that appointment to let me know the patient's going back and forth. I put FAM in there to let me know that the family is coming in. So if I were making phone calls, which I do, I actually know that that person's got other family members who are coming in that day, so that I can say, hi, one call for everybody coming in that day. So whatever you guys think that you might want to use that for, if there's, you only get 3 digits, but nitrous N2O if you want to, whatever you can think of that you might need. I actually do this in P up here because I use different categories for new patients. I have an NP1, which is a patient who is new to the practice, who hasn't been to the dentist in more than X number of years. And then I have an NP2, which is a new patient to the practice who has been to the dentist within a short period of time. So I actually set this up with an NP1 and NP2. All right. So that's a good use of the prefix field. Another thing that you can utilize, sort of like the intellicare, to let you know something about the patient. Right? I had an office recently who they were putting in expected copays in that field. So $564. But the problem with that is you only get 3 characters. If that person owed you $1,150, you wouldn't be able to put it in that way. So, but they use it.
I made it.
Yep, they use it, and that's great. So let's see. Oh, the other thing I do is if you use any services like RevenueWell for patient communication, sending out confirmations, I always schedule my new patients like this. I schedule them 10 minutes early. All right. The beauty of doing that is when a reminder goes out, you told them to come 10 minutes early to fill out paperwork. If I had my patients scheduled at their regularly scheduled time, they're going to get a reminder to come in at 10:30 where I wanted them to come 10 minutes early. So I take my new patients and I always overlap them by 10 minutes. So they get a 10-minute early reminder. And if they call mad because they thought their appointment was at 10:30, I would tell them, yes, but I asked you to come in 10 minutes early. So just FYI. But that's just an easy way to do that. And you can always overlap a patient like that so that you can see that the person is due in 10 minutes earlier than normal. I guess I should do that for that new patient down there too. All right. I'll move that patient up there. Cool. All right. So, and I say Tricia just came into the meeting too. So Tricia, if you want, you can unmute your mic. If you have any questions, throw them out there. If you want, there is a chat at the bottom of the screen. You can also use that to send questions in, whatever works for you guys, send them in, and you have me, so ask away. Was there anything else that you guys thought about that you wanted to ask? I'm looking at my chat over here too.
Okay, so you had mentioned that if somebody owes money, like for Jill there, she has the $564.
Yep.
We've just put a note on our account.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. And again, it depends on the office. I have a lot of offices who, patients in my office, you didn't go into the back until you paid your balance. So it wouldn't matter. I would never need it there because every patient that walked in the door, I would be going into their account as soon as they walked in the door, because I want to read any notes, prior visits, anything else, if there are any of the family members who have outstanding treatment. So I'm always going to the account before I do anything. So there's absolutely no reason for me to have a note in there. But if you write it in, fine. I'm okay with that. It just requires. And here's my thing. Every system in my practice has to be, this is going to sound mean, it has to be idiot proof. So I can't rely on anybody typing that in. I have to have a protocol in place that says this is the process you have to do so that even if somebody forgot to write that in there, it gets collected. So, I rely on processes beyond writing notes because somebody might skip the note. So everybody in the office has to go into the account, check the balance, even if they want to do a pre-walkout. And if you don't know what that is, I always go to walkout and I actually walk out or stage the services that we're going to be doing for the day to see how much the co-payment's going to be, because I want to see down here what their total balance is. Any prior balance plus today's balance will tell me what I need to collect today. So I kind of do everything. I collect money ahead of time. I'm working on that stuff before anybody else does it. So, and my Eaglesoft crashed, so I got to restart it.
I have a 2.
But writing it in the notes, fine. If you got the time to do it, please do. Whatever way you need to do it in order to get the money collected. And Eaglesoft starts back up. Good. Okay. All right. And double check over here. I've got 3 messages, but they're not about this. So let's just see what these are. I'm checking in the Facebook group, guys. Sorry, to see if there's anybody else that posted, because some folks had some issues trying to get into the chat today. So just wanted to make sure before I move on. Okay. Anything else you guys want to talk about with the schedule? One thing I do want to point out, while you're thinking about it, if your hours ever look weird, don't go into custom hours to fix it. The most important thing is to make sure that your providers are set up properly. All right. And I see this so often that the providers in the offices are set up incorrectly. And I'm using incorrectly to say, if you have your doctors listed with the hygiene chairs as their assigned chairs, you're always going to have messed up hours. All right. Because if Barbara is not going to work on Wednesdays and you take her off of Wednesday, so if you uncheck Wednesday for Barbara, her chair is still going to be open because in the doctor, you had Barbara's chair assigned to the doctor. So you should never have the hygiene chairs assigned to your doctors. You should only have the chairs that the providers work in assigned to them. All right. Anything you deviate from that, you're going to wind up with issues. So I can quickly look at my schedule and tell where my providers are working. I mean, this is a great example. So each of my providers works very different hours. So this doctor only works till 1. This one works and he has a later lunch than this doctor does. All right, but they both start at the same time, end at the same time, different lunch breaks. This hygienist works at the same schedule as this doctor. So our schedule reflects that. And as I said earlier, because my doctors on Tuesdays switch from doing restorative work to surgery, I can quickly see that my schedule is open for surgery or open for restorative. All right. But that's all reflected in setting up the provider hours above and beyond anything else. If you have your provider hours set up properly, then you don't have to worry about opening and closing. All right. Now, here's something that always comes up. Well, what if this doctor's not going to work this day? So let's go back to today. So this doctor says, you know what, I'm going to be out this day. I've got to do something. So what I see all the time is people will do this and they'll put a block on the day and they'll write, doctor out. All right. The problem with that is that day is still open. All right. And the system is still calculating a goal for that day. It's actually looking at the day and saying, how come this guy's not working today? He's supposed to work, but there's no patient scheduled. You just put a block in there. So you didn't actually close the day. So the proper way to close this day, delete that block, is actually to right click on the header for the day and say, close that chair. And that will take that chair out of, and then I can write doctor out. It'll actually take that chair out of production. All right. That's how you close a chair. All right. You can do that for your vacation week. Just go through your vacation week and you can right click and actually close the entire day for the week you're going to be out. All right. But you should go through the process of not putting blocks in, but actually closing the chair, closing the day. All right. That's the proper way to take them out of the equation for production. And make sure that you're closing the days properly. So if I have a hygienist who is going to be out and I don't have a temp who's going to work that day, then I'm going to right click on my hygienist and I'm going to close that chair. All right. That's how you make sure you clean that up. And as you can see, my office is set up not by the actual physical chair, but by the providers. And if I had, typically I would have 2 columns per every doctor, but, for demonstration purposes, I keep it clean so you guys can see it like that. But typically I'd have 2 chairs for every doctor, but just so you can see, what I do is every provider has the columns that they work out of. And that makes it so much easier because I can look at my day and be able to tell, That's right. Annie doesn't work after 1 o'clock. I know that by just looking at my schedule. All right. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. So
what about moving just a lunch break?
So if you have a one-time lunch break change, I'd put a block in.
Okay.
Yeah. So like if you're doing CPR, or if you're going to extend your lunch for the day because we're having a staff meeting or something like that, put the block in there. Yeah. If it's a one-time thing, blocks are fine. But if it's something where the entire day is going to be closed or the entire chair is going to be closed, then that's where you're going to actually use that closed chair process. Okay. But good question. Let's see. Oop, that's a private message. Okay. Anything else you guys can think of? I mean, it's you got another.
I accidentally just deleted my block button off of my toolbar up on the top. How do you add to your toolbar?
Okay, so right click on your toolbar. All right, go to customize. All right, and if you look for under the on schedule toolbar, there's create block.
Oh, yep.
Drag it back up there. All right, and then it might say something other than create block because that's a multi-use icon. But that's how you get it there.
Okay, thank you.
And see, what I've done is I've actually renamed all of mine, so they're easier and they're shorter. So like instead of real-time or eligibility, mine says RTE. So I've gone through and cleaned those up. Got it. If you're on version 21, if you do these, if you do a template designer, which is the blocks I was talking about, the templates, perfect day schedule, this will actually look a little different. They're actually actual blocks. So it looks a little different if you have version 21. The brown line that goes through the schedule is the current time, and that will actually go down as the day progresses. So that's a quick indicator of what time it is. So if I hadn't noticed that before. And I want you guys to see one other thing that you may not notice that makes a big difference. I'm going to go back to March 6th. I'm going to right click, go to current settings and setup. And there is actually something right here that says show double and triple booked information. So I'm going to okay that and show you. So if you didn't notice this before, or if you want to add this, this indicator lets me know that my provider is either double booked or triple booked. All right, so double booking would be in yellow, triple booking would be in red. All right, and remember mine's set up for demonstration purposes, so it's not really that, like true. But this is a great way, especially if you have a new person in the office, to be able to look at the schedule and find out where you're going to sort of back up, where you're going to bottleneck, and figure out, where I could get an emergency patient in would be, say, like right around there. Between 8:20 and 9:10 be a good place to put an emergency patient, because everything else is kind of triple or double booked. But it's a good way to be able to quickly look at your schedule and see where you're going to sort of bottleneck. I know because I got all these kids coming in. So I've got a bottleneck around 2 o'clock and also at about 4 o'clock. So it's a really quick, easy way to, again, right click, current settings, and setup. Show my double and triple booked. All right. Oh, and I see why. So triple book should really, I've got this set up wrong. So this should be red and double book should be yellow. That's why it looks different. There you go. So now it looks better. And I guess I should have used a different yellow. But you can see I only have one time where I'm triple booked. Let's get a better yellow. There you go. So you can see I'm double booked for a lot of the day, but triple booked at 2 o'clock and only for 10 minutes. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. Cool. All right. And I'm checking my chat to make sure that anybody is sending me messages or anything. So if there's anything else you can think of, let me know. Otherwise,
Easiest way to find somebody's coming in needing a 4 o'clock appointment? Is it just to go to the week at the week at a glance?
Yeah. And here's what I do. I mean, and this is the norm. I've been in dentistry so long that I started with a book. So for me, it's easier for me to flip through my days to
Okay.
find an opening. Because if you do anything like the searches, the appointment searches, those kind of things, the issue is if you search for a 60-minute appointment and there was a 50, it's not going to see that. All right. So I'd rather flip through my days and see if there's an opening available. And, I probably could find it faster than the computer can, but that's just me. The week at a glance is a great way to do it if you've got things set up properly, but not everybody does. And that's what I said. If your week at a glance is set up in such a way that you can actually see your full schedule and you can really visualize what's going on with that schedule, then great. I don't even know what's going on that day, but I want to be able to quickly say, oh, there's a block. I want to be able to quickly see what's going on my schedule. And the week at a glance can do that. A lot of people, use this. This was a big tool in some of the older software. So, if it's something that you think will help you, go for it. I'm big on whatever way you think it will work. But, I can see there's openings in my schedule here, but I really can't tell why they're openings. So that's what, for me, I like the big picture and I want to just be able to flip through my days. But everybody should know how to use the week at a glance, but also the month at a glance to be able to see when it comes to production collection, what's going on for your month. So everybody should be used to being able to utilize these. People who, they've worked in offices for years and they've never used those. So let's see. I'm checking on all my different social media platforms to make sure nobody's sending me messages while we're talking. Anything else you guys can think of? And I'll tell you this, guys, if you need help with those intellicares, I told you the path to try to put them back in and take them back out as you want. But you should be able to utilize at least a couple of them, but try them and see what happens. But you also might be able to find some things that are, whatever is the most important. And let me just show you. Remember, if you utilize the clinical screen, you can get a whole lot more information there. So if train your clinical folks to be able to utilize the operatory screen, and hopefully this thing will pop up. It's running slow, but this will come over. There it goes. So I have lots of icons that I show down here. It's stretched because we're on this Zoom call. But this patient has a hearing problem. They're due for bite wings. They're due for a full series. There's a memo I should read. They only want to see Dr. Beer. They're a VIP, which means they fail appointments. They're on a 3-month recall. They have Blue Shield. They're overdue for their recall. There's a treatment plan over $1,000. They have referred services outstanding, and they haven't filled out their COVID-19 information. So I can see a whole lot more down there than what would be typically on the schedule. So if you get your folks to utilize the operatory, you can actually add a whole lot more things down here, and things that honestly shouldn't be on the schedule. Like if I go to general setup and medical history alerts, you can actually add icons for all of the medical history things that aren't schedule related. But if somebody is, all right, so blood disease, somebody is a hemophiliac, all right, I need those blood drops to show. I don't need that on the schedule, but I definitely want to see that in the operatory. All right. So little things like that, I want to see differently. If they have osteoporosis and maybe they're on a bisphosphonate. So a bisphosphonate is something I want to see on the schedule because I want to know that person's on a bisphosphonate, find out they have medical clearance. And then I also want to see that on the clinical screen. So something like that, you could put both places. So through the medical history alerts, you can add to the things that you want. All right. And again, that just gives you more information on the schedule. It helps you with confirmation. You know, I can tell right there that patient wants to be confirmed by text. But imagine if that was a cell phone, I could tell that they don't want to be texted and they want to, they want to be called. And there's an icon up there. It lets me know that patient has less than $200 left of their remaining benefits. So, and that person's coming in for SRP. So I have to do something really fancy to get them to get money from that patient because they're not going to get paid for the SRP. So think about those intellicares and figure out which ones best suit you so that you can figure out which ones you want to use. So we are at 1:19. So I'll give it another 10 minutes. If there's any other things you guys can think of, let me know.
An easier way finding out if the patient already in the system.
Okay, if we have a father who is the insurance carrier, but is not a patient.
Okay.
We have him in our system, but he's not active. He's not a patient. So he calls into schedule, and this has come up where
they've been added a second time.
They get added a second time, and you cannot delete him because he's got an appointment or there's something in the smart doc or something at this point. So our list of doubles is just getting out of hand. So what is the easiest way to set up an appointment and find out whether or not he is in the system as an insurance carrier?
Yep. So this is what I challenge people to do is if they can't find them when they go to schedule somebody, open up the account and search for that person that way.
Okay, so you are on the actual schedule screen itself, though.
Yep. Correct? But I'm on the schedule screen, but instead of going into a patient, like with the pencil guy, I'm going to go into an account.
Which I deleted that one too. I don't know how.
All right. And I think I have somebody in here who, So this person is, I think he is. Let me use him and see what happens. I think he's not a patient. Let me look here. Now that person's a patient. Let's see. This person switched to, they're inactive. I was trying to see if I have somebody in here. I'll leave inactive. Now he's already scheduled, so I can't take him out. But yeah, if you go through the account, you'd be able to tell if that person is a patient or not, and edit them to make them a patient. So I always do that. I never try to go and especially if somebody is calling for the first time and they're going to schedule them. If you don't find them, you need to go searching through the person list, because remember, only patients can be scheduled. So you have to go through the person list. I wish there was an icon up here for just person, but there isn't one. So, a lot of times I'll go to the front desk, I'll go to person, look for them that way.
And then you just click use. Because I guess what I was always trained and told to do is just whatever, let's say we've got an opening on October 21st at 10 o'clock. That's the time that they want. So then I'm just double clicking, and you go to the patient. You can't find them under there. Then you create a new one, and that's how they're
right. And you're only going to be warned if you put in the same first name, middle initial, last name. And then you're going to warning that there's the same person with the same thing. And that never works because, you might not get a middle initial when you're doing that. So that's why, like I said, if I don't see them, I'm always going to my front first. And again, I've got protocols in place that I never ask somebody like, is this your first visit? Because they might say yes, because they've never been here before, but the rest of the family's been here. I would say, I've got a lot of phone scripts that I would use that would lead to a different outcome. So I never am going to say, is this your first visit? So typically if somebody says, I've never been there before, I don't even start from my schedule. I'm going to start from front desk, person. Once I get them in here, all right, I can always schedule them from here. So I can right click. Oops. Actually, it's not going to let me do it from here. But yeah, I mean, I would always set them up first here before I would go in setting them up someplace else, because I go through a couple of questions in this screen to set them up that they might not even be, they might not even be coming into the practice, because I'm going to ask them about their insurance. I'm going to ask them about their last visit and, that kind of information. So I'm going to make sure this is filled out before I even get to scheduling them. And just here's a tip, guys. And if you're at your computer, do this. Right here on the toolbar, at the bottom of your screen on your toolbar, if you right click and go to taskbar settings, all right, and right here it says combine taskbar buttons. This should be marked as never. All right, because one thing that Windows does is Windows stacks everything on top of each other, so you can't tell what's open.
For September 4th.
All right. So the beauty of this is I can go from my schedule to my front desk just like that. All right. I can tell that I have my personal list open. All right. I could have 10 accounts open at the same time, and they would all be lined up around the bottom of the screen so I can see what's going on. All right. Because how many times does somebody walk to the front desk and as they're getting ready to check out, they'll go, oh, I need to use the ladies' room. And then they walk away and you have the account open and then somebody calls. And now you have to either minimize, and they have to, I could have 100 accounts open at the same time, and they would all be lined up across the bottom, and I'd see what's going on. So again, I always switch back to my front desk to go through my personal list and check the people here before I go back to my schedule and actually schedule. Now, if you have a really busy office and you want to make sure that you hold that spot for somebody, then go ahead and put a block in there.
Let me just tell you,
so nobody gives it away. If you've got 10 people who are scheduling people, go ahead and put a block in there just to hold it until you can actually go schedule them. But, if you're just a one-person office and one-person scheduling, then you should be okay.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, good. So I did ask a question in the messenger.
Oh, I did see it.
What do you mean by someone seeing it in the clinical screen versus the appointment?
Okay. So this is the clinical screen, virtual clinical screen. All right. And the virtual clinical screen is what every operatory computer should be on. It'll take a couple minutes for mine to pop up. But everybody who is on the clinical side of Eaglesoft should not be working from the front desk. They should be working from this screen. All right.
And that's where it'll be.
Yep. So see all my icons down there?
Got it.
All right.
Okay.
And this is what I never understand why clinical people are on the front desk. I just don't get it. I don't understand why they aren't using this screen. This screen was designed for them to utilize. I mean, the beauty of this is I can see all of these labels up here. Lets me know everything I can do in the operatory.
How did you get that to pop up?
So if you hit F2 on your keyboard, all the labels will show. It's a great tool for anybody who's new to the office.
Or new to the clinical screen.
Yeah, or new to, yeah. Yeah. But the only thing that's not on the clinical screen, and mine's a little different because I've photoshopped mine, but you notice that on yours, you have a clock up there?
Yep. Okay.
Right? The clock is the schedule in the clinical screen, which doesn't make a lot of logical sense because the clock at the front desk is the time clock.
Okay.
Okay. But that's the schedule. So if they need to get to the schedule, they click that and they have the schedule. All right. But as long as they're working from this screen, if for nothing else, if you have no IntelliCares other than the two most basic, the Bite Wings and the full series, they can see that.
You know what? If you
right? And now they can do anything they need. If they want to take an x-ray, there's the x-ray. They don't need to use icons. It's almost like a McDonald's cash register. Right? So they can do everything from the screen as opposed to the front desk. It doesn't give them anything.
Right.
From the clinical side. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So utilize the clinical screen as much as possible for the people who are in the back. And if there's something that they don't have there that they're looking for, like the time clock is not on that screen, I've added the time clock to my toolbar.
Oh, okay.
All right. So if there's something that's not here that they need, which there isn't, other than the time clock, we can add it on.
I noticed there's no treatment plan on this screen, but there is on the front desk.
Well, you can always add it if you wanted to from the toolbar.
Okay.
Okay, but remember, if they're working from the chart, from the odontograph,
Right, you can go there from there.
it's treatment plans right down there.
Yeah.
Yep. So again, depends on where they're going from, but you know, this is kind of my dashboard. I'm always working from, you know, the chart, so I can see everything I need to see from here.
Awesome.
Yep. Cool. Good question. So it's almost 1:30. I don't have to run, but I know you guys are usually blocked off for time. So if there's any questions you have, shoot them away. And Jess, you came late, so anything you have, let me know.
I've been here. I just didn't have my microphone on.
I got you. Oh, and there's somebody coming in now, so we'll let them in. And now I see your question. That was weird. Your question popped up after. Yeah, now I see your question, Jess. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
Yep. The chat window was hidden behind Eaglesoft. So, and like I said, there's so much that people don't utilize in Eaglesoft. There is a ton here. The key to it is what works best for you guys. You know, I have offices that are 2 chairs. I have offices that are 26 chairs. You know, it depends on what's going to work for you guys and what you're going to get the most out of. So picking and choosing what works, you know, keep it as simple as possible. The color coding, the descriptions, those kind of things, whatever you can do to keep it as simple as possible, but also make it work as fast as possible. One thing I didn't talk about was your descriptions. All right. You know, are your descriptions showing well? Are they just showing like the code? Because if it's a code and, you know, everybody doesn't know the procedure codes, you've got to make sure that you put the descriptions in. And that comes from your service codes. And every service code, let's just use this. Every service code has a display abbreviation, and that display abbreviation is what shows up on the schedule. So if you don't have a display abbreviation or you had a code, I mean, if you had 1110 here, not everybody knows what the procedure codes are, so you have to make sure you put something in there. I mean, if you call your composites or resins, make sure it says res or composite, all right? So edit these codes to make sure that they actually match what you want it to say on the schedule. And then you're going to start to have some much cleaner description showing here. All right, let's see. And Deanne, I see you came in late. So if you have any questions, there is a chat box that now I can finally see. Or if you want to, you're not muted. So if you have any questions you want to ask, do so. Tricia, same thing. I'll give it another couple minutes. If you have any questions, ask away. I don't have another appointment for another 25 minutes. So I've got time before I have to jump off. So if you have something, ask while you can. Or before I lose my voice, one or the other.
I am. But
and here's one thing I will tell you guys, and this is something you should practice. And you know, I challenge people when I do in-office skill development. One of the things I challenge offices all the time to do is figure out how you can get from the screen you're in to the screen you want to go to in less than 2 clicks. If you can do that, you're like a master. All right. But you should be able to go from one screen to another screen in less than 2 clicks in almost every situation. If I said, you know, if somebody came in and they said, oh, you know, the entire family got new cell phones. I want you to update the cell phone numbers. It's like, oh, crap. Okay. But you can do that. If you just go to one person, go to patient info. All right. So far I've got 2 clicks. Here's my updated the phone numbers. All right. And then right click on the wife, switch to her. All right. Update her phone number. All right. Right click on the son, switch to him, update the phone number. All right. So you should be able to get from one patient to another patient very quickly without having to do a whole lot of craziness. All right. You should be able to get from wherever you are to wherever you want to be in less than 2 clicks and figure out how to do it. It's always either going to be a click on the patient, click on an icon up here, or a right click and find where you want to go. All right. But you shouldn't have to close, open, close, open, close, open, close, open. That will drive you nuts. All right. I see people all the time posting insurance checks, or they get the mail in and they're posting checks. So they'll put a check in for this patient and then they'll close this screen and open up another screen where you can just hit this little Lego guy and go to your next patient, and hit the Lego guy and then go to the next patient, you know, so you don't have to keep jumping around to do what you want to do. All right.
How did you get account preferences on your account?
Okay. So if you, and what I did was, let me close this. All right, and close this.
Oh, you just have preferences checked.
Well, you have to actually open them up, and oh, I've got it locked on here. So, all right. So you can actually move this around to wherever you want it. And what I have it is locked to the side of this account window. All right. And then I have my account activities, and I actually lock that to the bottom of this pane over here. So I can see the last payments that they made and the account preferences all on the same screen. But what will happen is if you don't have this set properly, remember you have to close it and then I'll open it back up. If you don't have it, if it doesn't stick, you could have a corruption in your config file, and you have to call Patterson and they'll help you restore that.
That's interesting because I had to reach out to Patterson last week because the balance wasn't staying put. Every time I opened the balance, it just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And they had to log on, go into the file. We got it pulled up for the one patient, and then I got off the phone with them and I went back. I went out of the account, went back in, and it was gone again.
Yeah. So more than likely your config file is messed up, and then we're going to have to delete that and put it back in. So,
Bummer.
yep. Or the other thing is, depending on your, when you log into, like when you turn your computer on in the morning, do you have multiple users? So you log in as yourself into Windows, not Eaglesoft. Log into Windows, and then you put a password in?
Yes.
Okay. So if you're not an admin in your network, any changes you make, when you go back into it again, they're going to be gone because you can only make a temporary change.
Oh.
So it's almost like if you went to a public library and used the computer, if you log off and you log back on, all of your settings are gone, all your search history is gone, that kind of stuff. It's like for public, you know, for security. So you might not have admin rights in order to change a preference. So 2 things, the config file might be messed up, or you might not be an admin in your domain. So even though you made a change, it doesn't stick.
Got it.
So 2 things could be going on. So you got to ask your IT guy. Sometimes you'll have to log in as the admin on all of your user rights and then fix it, or have your IT guy do that as a push up. Like they push that through all of the choices. Let's see. Okay.